Papa Timmy was half asleep as he dragged himself to the gate. He opened the viewing hole. And what he saw almost stopped his heart. "Jesus Christ of Nazareth," he screamed. "Chief. Chief has come back." His voice tore through the night like thunder. "Madam. Madam," he shouted. "Madam, Chief has returned from the land of the dead." The gate flew open. And there he was. Chief Abikimi. Dirty. Weak. Shaking. Stumbling into the compound like a man who had walked through hell and back. Inside the mansion, Prima was sleeping peacefully. Smiling in her dreams. Dreaming about freedom. Dreaming about money. Dreaming about a life without her husband. Then the screaming started. At first, she ignored it. But the shouting grew louder. Closer. More desperate. Her eyes snapped open. Her heart began to beat wildly, slamming against her chest like it wanted to escape. "What is Papa Timmy shouting about at this time?" she whispered. She forced herself out of bed. Each step toward the window felt heavier than the last. She pulled the curtain aside. And her world stopped. Standing in the compound. Alive. Was her husband. "No," she screamed silently. "No, no, no, this can't be happening. He was supposed to be dead. They promised her he would die." Her hands started shaking uncontrollably. Then. Her phone vibrated. One message. She opened it. And her blood ran cold. "Madam, your husband is alive today. But very soon, you will wish you were dead. We know what you did. We know everything. And when the time is right, the whole world will know too. Sleep well, if you can. A friend." The phone slipped from her hand and crashed to the floor. Outside. Chief Abikimi slowly raised his head. And looked straight at her window. As if he could see her. As if he knew. And for one terrifying second. He smiled. Not a smile of love. Not a smile of relief. A cold, knowing smile. In that moment, Prima realized something horrifying. Her plan hadn't failed. It had backfired. And now, the real punishment was about to begin. Who sent that message? Does Chief Abikimi know his wife tried to have him killed? What will happen on the burial day, when the entire family gathers? Because one thing is certain. Someone will be exposed. Someone will be destroyed. And someone will not survive the truth. The next morning, chaos ruled the mansion. Prima was pale, her fingers shaking as she stared at her phone. Every notification felt like a dagger. The message haunted her like a shadow she couldn't shake. Chief Abikimi, bruised but alive, sat in the living room, drinking water and catching his breath. His eyes, sharp and cold, scanned the room. He did not speak, but Prima could feel the weight of his gaze like a stone pressing against her chest. "Good morning, madam," he said calmly, his voice low, measured, like a calm river hiding sharp rocks underneath. Prima jumped. She had expected screaming, begging, or panic. Not this. Not him. Prima swallowed hard, forcing a fake smile. "Good morning, my dear." Her voice trembled. Chief Abikimi leaned forward. "Do you think I don't know what's been happening?" His eyes bored into her. "Do you think I don't know about your little plans, about your betrayal?" Prima's heart raced. Beads of sweat ran down her forehead. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. "And Tombro," Chief Abikimi continued, ignoring Prima's fear, "your sister, your greed, it's time someone taught her a lesson she won't forget." Meanwhile, Tombro sat in her secret mansion, counting the pile of money she had collected. 90 million naira. Enough to live like royalty forever. She smiled wickedly, imagining how shocked her family would be when they learned she had outsmarted them all. But her smile froze mid-thought when her phone buzzed. A single message appeared. "Chief Abikimi is alive. We know everything. Watch your back." Her hands trembled. Her heart pounded like a drum. For the first time, Tombro realized something terrifying: someone was one step ahead of her. That evening, the entire family gathered for the burial. Tears, wailing, prayers, and sorrow filled the air. Everyone thought the drama was over. Everyone except Tombro and Priya. They believed the stage was set for their next big move. But little did they know, Chief Abikimi had other plans. Plans that would expose every lie, every kidnapping, every deceitful move Tombro and Priya had made. And Prima had her own vengeance simmering beneath her calm facade. The stage was set. The countdown had begun. And in just a few hours, the world they had built on greed, betrayal, and kidnapping would come crashing down. Because when the night falls, secrets come alive. And the forest of lies is about to burn. The day of the burial arrived like a storm hiding behind the clouds. The village of Warwick was buzzing with activity, but this time, the excitement carried a strange tension. Villagers whispered about the return of all the children from abroad. Cars with foreign plates roared into the dusty streets. Flags and canopies fluttered in the wind. Somewhere in the background, drums echoed as if trying to warn the family that something dark was about to unfold. Inside the house, Tombro and Priya were busy pretending to grieve. Tombro's fake tears glistened under the sunlight streaming through the windows. Priya's eyes darted nervously from one corner to another. He knew that every plan they had set into motion, every kidnapping, every ransom collected, was just a thread in a rope. One wrong move and it could snap. The siblings began arriving one by one. Sister Blessing came first, dressed elegantly in black, her demeanor humble, but her eyes shining with suspicion she didn't yet voice. Brother Terry arrived with a briefcase that smelled faintly of perfume and paper currency. Sister Iai came with her usual calm composure, a quiet intelligence in her gaze. Brother Gospower followed, weary but alert, his mind already processing the past kidnappings and wondering who could have orchestrated them. And then, Chief Abikimi arrived. The crowd at the compound fell silent when his black Range Rover rolled through the gates. He stepped out, immaculate despite the trauma he had endured, his aura commanding attention. People whispered in awe. Some even wondered aloud if he had returned from a journey to the underworld itself. His eyes scanned the gathering like a hawk sizing up prey. Prima followed behind him, walking with calculated grace. Her lips curved into a smile, but her eyes flickered with unease. She had expected control, a man cowed and fearful, someone who could be manipulated. But Chief Abikimi moved differently, steady, powerful, unbroken. Prima's heart skipped. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Tombra's smile, on the other hand, had grown wider as she noticed the large sums her siblings carried in their bags. Her mind was already calculating the next ransoms, the next kidnapping plans, the next steps to increase her wealth. Priya leaned closer to her, whispering, "Are you sure this is wise? Something feels off." Tombro waved him off, her voice sharp but controlled. "Relax. Everything is under control. Nobody suspects a thing. Soon, we will have all the money. All of it." But outside the view of Tombro and Priya, the game was shifting. Chief Abikimi had returned alive for a reason. He knew things, he had felt the hands of deception closing in on his family. And Prima's greed and betrayal had not gone unnoticed. As the funeral service began, with prayers echoing across the compound, a subtle tension ran like electricity in the air. Tombro was alert, moving her eyes from one sibling to another, counting, noting, memorizing. Priya fidgeted beside her, whispering warnings she refused to heed. And then, the first sign of disaster appeared. A small envelope was discreetly slipped under Chief Abikimi's chair. He picked it up, opened it slowly, and unfolded the paper inside. It read only 3 words. "We know everything." Tombro felt her blood run cold. Priya's face went pale. Every plan, every kidnapping, every ransom payment, they were exposed. Chief Abikimi stood, his gaze sweeping the entire room. No fear. No anger yet. Just a cold, calculated calm. And then he smiled, a smile that chilled Tombro to the bone. Prima froze in place. She realized, too late, that her own husband's survival had undone her. Every move she had made, every lie, was about to crumble. The villagers continued to cry, mourn, and pray, unaware that a storm of revenge, exposure, and destruction was quietly gathering around the very people they came to honor. Inside the family house, Tom Bro whispered to Priya, "We need to act before they figure out our plan." But it was too late. The trap had shifted. The hunter had become the hunted. And what neither Tom Bro nor Priya knew was that Chief Abikimi had already begun orchestrating his own plan, a plan that would destroy them both, strip away their wealth, and expose their crimes to the entire village. That night, when darkness finally fell over Warwick, the forest of lies Tom Bro had built began to burn. Flames of betrayal, fear, and vengeance crackled silently, ready to consume everyone in its path. The question now was simple, yet terrifying. Who would survive? Who would be exposed? And who would fall first when the reckoning came? The night of the burial ended, but the real storm was only beginning. Tom Bro and Priya returned to their secret mansion, laughing softly, convinced they were still untouchable. They counted their money, patted themselves on the back, and toasted to their perfect plan. Tom Bro's eyes sparkled with greed, her mind already planning the next wave of kidnappings. Priya, still uneasy, followed silently, hoping her cunning wouldn't collapse around them. But little did they know. Chief Abikimi had been awake all night. He had quietly inspected the security cameras, traced suspicious calls, and pieced together the evidence like a master detective. And he had already left a subtle trap for them. The next morning, a courier arrived at Tom Bro's mansion with an unmarked envelope. She opened it casually. Inside was a single, crisp photo, all 5 of her siblings together, smiling, holding signs that read, "We know everything, Tom Bro." Her smile froze. Her stomach churned. Before she could react, another message came to her phone. "Every crime you committed, every ransom you took, it ends today. Be ready." Priya swallowed hard. Tom Bro, they know. They know everything. Tom Bro laughed nervously, waving him off. "Relax. This is just a scare. Nothing can touch us." But it wasn't a scare. Later that afternoon, a black Range Rover pulled up silently in front of their mansion. Out stepped Chief Abikimi. He was calm, composed, but his eyes burned like fire. Behind him were all the siblings, Blessing, Tari, Iyai, Gospower, and even Sister Abikimi's trusted allies from abroad, people they thought were naive, helpless, or far away. The gates shut behind them. There was no escape. Tom Bro's heart raced. Priya's face drained of color. "You thought you could manipulate us," Chief Abikimi said, his voice steady but deadly, echoing in the mansion's grand hall. "You thought you could take everything from your family and get away with it." Tom Bro tried to speak, but her mouth felt dry. Her words stumbled out like broken glass. It was only money, we didn't hurt anyone. You kidnapped us. You demanded ransom. You put our lives at risk." And now, Chief Abikimi paused, letting the weight of his words crush them. It's time to pay the price. Prima, who had been watching from the window of Chief Abikimi's house across the street, realized her own plan had backfired. The man she had wanted dead was alive, and now her sister-in-law's greed was about to expose her own betrayal. Tom Bro's eyes darted, looking for an escape. Priya's hands shook. But the doors were locked. The windows sealed. The family had surrounded them. Chief Abikimi raised his hand, and the envelope of evidence, the photos, call records, even videos of Tom Bro and Priya planning the kidnappings, was laid on the table. "This is every crime you've committed," he said. "And now, the entire village, the police, and the authorities will know. Your money, your mansion, your cars, everything will be seized. And you," he leaned in, his voice like ice, "will answer for every single crime." Tom Bro tried to bluff. You can't, we have." "You have nothing," Chief Abikimi interrupted. "Nothing. You gambled with your own family. And now, you lose everything." Priya sank to the floor, whispering, "Tom Bro, we're done. We are finished." Tom Bro's greed and pride had blinded her, but now, terror replaced it. Her plans had crumbled in a single moment. The wealth she had stolen, the lives she had terrorized, all came crashing down. From the street, Prima watched in horror as her husband returned alive, as her sister-in-law's empire of lies collapsed, and realized her own betrayal would soon be exposed too. And in that moment, the lesson became painfully clear: greed, deceit, and betrayal always have consequences. The mansion was silent, heavy with anticipation. And as Tombra and Priya were taken into custody by the authorities, the family finally stood together. Their eyes glistened, not with fear, but with justice, relief, and the bitter knowledge that blood truly is thicker than money, and sometimes, vengeance runs thicker than family ties. The village of Warwick would never forget the story of Tombra and Priya, the couple who tried to play God with their own family, and how, in the end, the forest of lies burned them alive, leaving only the truth standing tall. In the bustling town of Warwick, Delta State, there lived a woman named Tombra, whose laziness was legendary. It wasn't just ordinary laziness, it was as if her bones were made of lead and her blood flowed like thick honey, slow and sluggish. She was married to Priya, a man equally unwilling to lift a finger, and together they were like two rotten tomatoes in the same basket, content to do nothing while life passed them by. Every morning, while others hustled for their daily bread, Tombra and Priya remained in bed, snoring like overfed pythons. But life has a way of balancing things, and Tombra's siblings, all far away in countries like America, London, Canada, Germany, and Dubai, were working hard, sending money home to help their aging mother. Tombra, however, did not lift a finger. She waited, arms folded like a queen, jumping up only when her phone buzzed with Western Union alerts. Even then, she complained endlessly, never satisfied with what they sent. One day, as Priya sat on their broken sofa, exhausted from the monotony, he finally spoke, pleading with her to find a way to work, to learn a trade, or at least do something with their lives. Tombra erupted in anger, shouting about sacrifices and childhood struggles, dismissing his concerns entirely. From that day on, Priya stopped suggesting work, sinking further into idleness, and life went on, empty and meaningless, until one Tuesday morning, a phone call came that would ignite Tombra's ambition, though in the darkest way imaginable. Her mother had passed away. As grief and opportunity collided, Tombra's mind began to calculate, her eyes gleaming with a mix of greed and cunning, plotting a future that would change her life and her family forever. Little did anyone know, the lazy woman of Warwick was about to set into motion a chain of events that would bring both fortune and destruction, testing loyalty, blood ties, and the very boundaries of human greed. 2 days after the shocking news of her mother's death, Tombra's mind was already racing, not with grief, but with opportunity. Her phone rang early one morning, cutting through her sluggish sleep like a knife. On the other end was her brother, Gospower, his voice heavy and weary, carrying the weight of a man far from home. Tombra, eyes barely open, sat up on the bed and forced the words out of her mouth. "Brother Gospower, how are you? How is London? When are you sending money? The last money you sent is finished, we haven't eaten for 3 days." There was no pause, no inquiry about his well-being, greed had swallowed every ounce of her manners. A long silence followed, broken only by Gospower's quiet, trembling voice. "Tombra, it's not about money today. I'm calling about something very serious." Tombra's heart raced. What happened? Is someone sick? Is it an accident? She asked, but the words of her brother hit like a thunderbolt. Mama was dead. She had passed quietly in her sleep the day before, her long life of 78 years finally at an end. Tears poured from Tombra's eyes, but whether they were real or crocodile tears, no one could tell. She wailed and grieved dramatically, rolling on the bed as though she were performing in a tragic movie. Behind her tears, however, her mind was calculating, 5 siblings, all with wealth from abroad, all coming to Nigeria for Mama's burial, and all carrying their money in their pockets. Her husband, Priya, shuffled in quietly, concerned for once, and suggested they think of earning a living instead of relying on their siblings' generosity. But Tombra, fiery and cunning, silenced him, her voice sharp as a whip. "They send us peanuts, Priya. Instead of begging every month, why not collect it once and for all?" she spat. Priya wanted to protest, stammering about laws and consequences, about kidnapping being a federal crime. Tombra waved him off dismissively. We will hire professionals. We'll pay them a little, collect a lot, and no one will suspect a thing. Priya's protests were swallowed by her determination, and in that moment, he silently nodded, surrendering his conscience to the lure of greed. Tombra's plan was set in motion, and with her mind racing like a machine calculating every possible angle, she knew that the first strike would be just the beginning. The stage was ready, the players were coming, and soon, the quiet town of Warwick would be thrown into chaos by a woman whose ambition was darker than anyone could imagine. The first victim was Sister Blessing. Tombra had been tracking every move of her siblings since the day they arrived for the burial. Blessing, unaware of the danger, decided to visit an old friend in the J area of Warwick. She dressed elegantly, sprayed her favorite perfume, and waved goodbye to her family, humming softly in her American accent, oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. Meanwhile, Tombra had already contacted Razor, the leader of the hired kidnappers. Blessing will leave by 4 p.m. in a grey Toyota Camry, she instructed, her voice smooth and deadly. Razor and his men waited in the shadows, blending into the evening like predators lying in ambush. As Blessing drove through a quiet street lined with tall bushes, a motorcycle suddenly appeared from nowhere, blocking her path. Startled, she slammed on the brakes, just as 3 masked men jumped out, their movements sharp and deliberate, their guns gleaming under the fading sunlight. Get out. Now, they shouted, smashing the car window with a rock. Panic surged through Blessing's body like electricity. She screamed, pleading for her life, offering her handbag, her car, anything, but the men only laughed, their eyes cold and merciless. They tied her hands, blindfolded her with a dirty cloth, and threw her into the back of a waiting van. Her cries were muffled by the roaring engine as the van sped through rough, winding roads, bouncing her like a ragdoll. When it finally stopped, she was dragged into a dark, unfinished building, the smell of dust, urine, and decay clinging to the walls. Please, what do you want from me? She sobbed, collapsing onto the cold cement floor. A tall kidnapper leaned close, his voice like grinding metal. We don't want your things. We want big money, 20 million naira. Your family has 3 days. Pay or else. Blessing's heart froze. How could her family possibly gather such an amount in such a short time? Back at the family home, chaos erupted. Phones rang endlessly, relatives screamed, and the air was thick with panic. Yet, in a small, dark room, Tombra and Priya watched the unfolding drama unfold like 2 foxes surveying a trapped flock of chickens. Tombra's lips curled into a smile, her eyes gleaming with wicked satisfaction. See how they panic, she whispered to Priya. This is exactly what I wanted. Fear will make them pay. Priya, however, shivered, uneasy with the depth of their actions. Tombra. I'm afraid. This could go too far. Afraid of what? She snapped, her voice like ice. Relax. Everything is under control. But little did they know, this first kidnapping would set a dangerous precedent, one that would spiral far beyond what even Tombra could control. The wheels of greed and revenge were in motion, and nothing, and no one, would be safe. The phone rang in Chief Gospower's office late in the evening, and when he picked it up, a cold, rough voice pierced through the line. We have your sister. If you want to see her alive again, bring 20 million naira. Don't involve the police, or she dies, and we'll send you her head in a parcel. Do you hear me? The line went dead, leaving Gospower frozen, the phone still pressed against his ear. His face drained of color as the reality hit him. Blessing had been kidnapped. Chaos erupted in the family compound. Screams, frantic calls, prayers, and cries filled the air as relatives ran in every direction, their hearts pounding with fear and desperation. For 3 relentless days, the family scrambled like headless chickens, selling properties, borrowing from friends, emptying bank accounts, anything to raise the ransom. Meanwhile, Tombra and Priya watched from their hidden corner, smiles curling across their faces like predators savoring the fear of their prey. The family, frantic and distraught, eventually gathered the 20 million naira demanded. The money was delivered precisely as instructed, and Blessing was released, shaken, bruised, and pale, her American elegance now a distant memory. She returned home like a ghost, her eyes hollow, reflecting the terror she had endured. The family embraced her, praying and giving thanks, oblivious to the quiet triumph unfolding elsewhere. Tombra excused herself, slipping into her room, where she checked her phone and saw the alert, 10 million naira, her share of the ransom. Her smile was wicked, her mind already racing. 1 down, 4 more to go, she whispered, her greed igniting. Within the next 2 months, Tombra's plan escalated mercilessly. Brother Tari was kidnapped from his car early one morning, demanding 50 million naira. Sister Iai was taken from a shopping mall for 25 million. Terminal was snatched at night on his way home from a bar, ransom set at 18 million. And finally, even Chief Gospower himself was kidnapped, demanding 30 million naira. The family had nothing left, forced to beg, borrow, and take loans to meet the demands. Yet Tombra and Priya emerged victorious, collecting a staggering total of 108 million naira. After paying Reza and his team, they were left with 90 million naira, hidden safely in a secret account. With this wealth, they bought a luxurious mansion on the outskirts of Warwick, furnished it with opulence, and purchased brand new cars, a Lexus Jeep and a Mercedes-Benz. Their lives transformed overnight, but they were careful, hiding their riches from the family, continuing to beg, to act poor, and to maintain the facade of humility. Yet, as the elders say, no matter how long the night, daylight always comes, and the final target, Chief Abikimi, their wealthy uncle, loomed in Tombra's greedy sights, promising the ultimate score and perhaps, the most dangerous challenge of all. Tombra's eyes gleamed like fire when she heard that Chief Abikimi, her wealthy uncle, would be coming to Warwick for her mother's burial. Another big fish, she thought, one that could bring her untold wealth. Without wasting a moment, she called Reza. "I have one more job for you," she said, her voice sharp and commanding. "Pick my uncle. He's rich. At least 50 million naira waiting for us." Reza hesitated. "Are you sure, madam? Your family has that much?" Tombra snapped. "Just do what I tell you. I'll send you his details." 3 days before the burial, Chief Abikimi was kidnapped. It happened in the evening as he drove home from his law office in his sleek black Range Rover, listening to soothing high-life music. Suddenly, a vehicle blocked his path, and before he could reverse, armed men surrounded him like ants swarming sugar. "Get out, old man. Get out now," they shouted, smashing his car windows and dragging him out like an animal. "Do you know who I am?" "I am Chief Abikimi," he yelled, trying to use his status to intimidate them. But the men didn't care. To them, he was just money on legs. They threw him into their waiting van and sped into the night. Back at his mansion, his wife, Prima, was in her bedroom on a video call with her young lover, Faye, giggling and biting her lips seductively. "I miss you, baby," she purred, lost in fantasies of a new life. But a loud knock on the door interrupted her. "Madam, emergency." "Open the door." Prima frowned, annoyed. "What now, Papa Timmy? Can't you see I'm busy?" Her servant's voice trembled. "Chief hasn't returned from work. His phone is unreachable. It's past 9. Prima's heart skipped, but she quickly composed herself. "Relax. He'll be back," she said coolly, hiding the first flicker of fear. Deep inside, however, a sinister thought had begun to form. Maybe someone was solving her biggest problem for her. The next morning, Prima's phone rang. An unknown number appeared. She answered cautiously. A cold, harsh voice announced, "We have your husband, Chief Abikimi. If you want him alive, bring 50 million naira. We'll call back with instructions." Instead of panic, a wicked smile spread across Prima's face. "How do I know you really have him?" she asked smoothly. The kidnappers sent a photo, Chief Abikimi tied to a chair, looking exhausted and frightened. Prima's mind raced, not with concern for her husband's safety, but with opportunity. "Kill him," she said calmly, her voice icy. "I'll pay extra. Make sure it's clean. Make it look like I had no money to pay the ransom." The kidnappers froze. Even hardened criminals were shocked at her cold, calculated cruelty. "Madam, you want us to kill your husband?" "Yes," she repeated firmly. "Do it, and when you're done, I'll pay you 5 million naira extra. Make it untraceable." simple and clean. Meanwhile, Tombra was blissfully unaware of Prima's treachery. She was focused solely on her plan. Her uncle was her final target. The stage was set, Chief Abikimi was in the hands of Reza and his men, Prima's betrayal ready to unfold, and Tombra's greedy mind plotting the collection of ransom. What none of them realized was that the collision of their schemes, the greed of Tombra, the wickedness of Prima, and the desperation of the kidnappers, was about to unleash a storm that would consume them all. By the time the burial day arrived, alliances would be shattered, secrets exposed, and the family would never be the same again. The night was heavy and silent when Reza's van screeched to a stop in front of Chief Abikimi's golden gates. Inside, the old man was still tied to a chair, bruised and exhausted, but alive. The kidnappers pushed him out like a sack of grain, his hands still bound, his clothes torn and dirty. He stumbled, disoriented, unsure if he was dreaming or awake. The van sped off into the shadows, leaving him lying on the driveway of his mansion. Papa Timmy, the lawyer gatekeeper, was already awake, puzzled by the strange noises outside. His eyes widened in disbelief as he saw the old man on the ground. Jesus Christ! Chief! Chief has returned, he shouted, fumbling to open the massive golden gates. Chief Abikimi struggled to his feet, shuffling inside the compound like a man who had stared death in the face and survived. Inside the mansion, Prima had been sleeping peacefully, dreaming of her escape with Faye. But the screams from the gate jolted her awake. Her heart raced as she rushed to the window, and what she saw froze her blood. Her husband was alive, standing in the darkness, exhausted but breathing. Prima's mind scrambled. This was impossible, he was supposed to be dead. Her phone buzzed in her hand, and she saw the chilling message, "Madam, your husband is alive today, but very soon we will wish you were dead. We know what you did. You know everything. And when the time is right, the whole world will know too. Sleep well if you can. A friend." Prima's hands trembled, and her phone slipped from her fingers, crashing to the floor. For the first time, she realized she was not in control. Chief Abikimi's eyes lifted slowly, scanning the mansion. For a split second, Prima thought she saw him smile, a cold, knowing smile that made her blood run cold. Panic gripped her. The nightmare she thought had ended was only beginning. Tombra, meanwhile, was in her room, pacing and thinking of the next move. Her uncle had been released, but her plan wasn't over. Her greedy mind churned, Prima's betrayal and her husband's survival were variables she hadn't accounted for. She would need to be faster, smarter, and more ruthless if she wanted to get her hands on that fortune. The following day, the mansion buzzed with tension. Chief Abikimi moved carefully, avoiding Prima's suspicious glances, while Tombra and Priya observed from afar, preparing for the next phase of their scheme. The stakes had just been raised. No one knew who would be the next victim of greed, betrayal, and revenge. One thing was certain, the battle lines had been drawn. Tombra had her sights set on Prima now, planning to turn the tables and ensure that the woman who tried to kill her husband would pay dearly. The countdown to the final showdown had begun. Tombra's mind was a whirlwind of schemes. With Chief Abikimi safely back in his mansion, her eyes shifted to Prima, the woman whose wickedness rivaled her own. Every morning, Tombra and Priya would watch from the shadows, studying Prima's movements, noting her routines, memorizing when she left the mansion, who she met, and how she handled her vast fortune. Prima was cunning, but even the most cunning had weaknesses. Tombra's plan was precise: strike when Prima least expected, turn her own greed against her, and collect the ransom that would secure their final victory. The opportunity came faster than expected. Prima, confident that her husband had been dealt with, left the mansion one afternoon to attend a business meeting, flaunting her wealth as she walked past the gates. Her expensive heels clicked against the marble, and her designer handbag swayed, oblivious to the storm about to descend. Tombra's phone buzzed. "Reza," she whispered, "she's leaving now. Make sure everything is ready." Reza and his team, trained and ruthless, prepared to execute the plan to perfection. Prima's drive was interrupted the moment she reached the street. A sleek black van appeared seemingly from nowhere, blocking her path. Before she could react, men in dark masks surrounded her, pointing guns and shouting commands. "Get out of the car." "Now," she screamed, but no one heard her. She was dragged from her vehicle, her struggles futile against trained kidnappers. Her eyes darted in panic, realizing the irony. She, who had plotted her husband's death, was now at the mercy of someone else's plan. The kidnappers moved quickly, tying her hands, covering her eyes, and throwing her into the back of the van. Prima's mind raced, but for once, fear replaced her usual arrogance. This is impossible. Tombra, it's her, she thought, her pulse hammering like a war drum. Tombra, back at her mansion with Priya, smiled wickedly. Every step of the plan was unfolding perfectly. She whispered into the phone, "Tell Reza to demand 70 million naira from Chief Abikimi. Let him know it's time to pay for his wife's betrayal." Inside the van, Prima's luxurious world crumbled. The air was thick with tension and fear. The kidnappers drove through winding roads, the city lights fading into darkness. Each turn, each bump in the road reminded Prima that she had underestimated her sister-in-law. She had thought she could manipulate, betray, and eliminate anyone standing in her way, but now, she was the prey. Back at Chief Abikimi's mansion, the old lawyer paced nervously, unaware that his wife had been kidnapped. Tombra and Priya's strategy was brilliant: release him first, then strike at Prima, ensuring both the money and revenge. Tombra's mind raced with every detail, calculating the exact amount of ransom, the timing, and the perfect psychological blow to teach Prima a lesson she would never forget. The stakes had never been higher, and the family's secrets were about to erupt into chaos. By nightfall, messages flew between Tombra and Reza. "Make sure she sees the consequences," she ordered. "This is more than money, it's about showing her what happens when you betray the people who gave you life." The plan was set. Prima, trapped, terrified, and alone, was about to experience the full wrath of Tombra's cunning. And little did anyone know, this kidnapping was only the beginning. The dominoes of betrayal, greed, and revenge were about to tumble, threatening to destroy everything the family thought they knew.